So now we are up to the final stages of our workshop. What you should have so far is a background. Mine is a bit bleedy, like a sort of bleedy sunset. And you should have another sheet with some bigger blobby shapes on it. They could be hills or houses or giant's feet. And then you should have this page, which is patterns. Mine are looking kind of like fungi, because I have been reading some books on fungi. Sometimes you don't even realize what gets into your dreams. Okay, so once your sheets are completely dry, you want to put your background aside and take your other two sheets, the patterns and the blobbies. So first you want to start by just cutting out the shapes, the main shapes. And then we'll take a bit of time to play around with them and see how they might fit together. So start by just doing some crazy cutting. So, once you've done all your cutting, which is quite a lot of cutting, you should have bits. So many bits. Some of the bigger bits, you know, might be good for hills and things like that. So see here, I've got a few hills on my cover of one of my books that are just made from big bits that are laid over each other. So what I think you should do now is get your background sheet. Make sure it's nice and flat. You might need to bend it a bit so that it flattens out. You want it nice and flat. Sometimes you can even actually roll it back the other way to get it nice and flat. Once you've got your background sheet, put it down and have a look at all of your bits that you've got. Have a play around. It's sort of like a jigsaw puzzle. Think about how is this going to be a dreamscape? And then we'll go back and cut a few more details out. Maybe add in some bits of white and turn it into some crazy place from your dreams. So let's have a little play. So I generally start with the big bits first that you've cut out. Make sure you've got some space. It's a bit hard once you've got all these bits of paper everywhere. Got some lovely big bits here. And you don't have to do what I'm doing, okay? So you could, you know, I'm going to put this down on my foreground as a hill, but you might want to put it up in the sky as a cloud. Or, you know, your dream is how you want it to be. So I can't dream for you, but I'm liking the look of this. It's looking very moody. So hopefully you've got some nice stuff going on. One thing to remember is you don't need to use all of the bits. So just have a play around. I'm going to have a play around and have a think about where some things could go. Once you've had a fiddle around with all your bits, it can take quite a while, and you really might not use all the bits. You might save them for another picture later on. But then you want to just get your scissors, and you should have lots of other parts left over. Like I have lots of these white offcuts. And so if you want to add in a few things that might be white, like parts, so you might need a roof for a house, or you might want some shoes for a walking plant. I don't know. I need some stalks for all the mushrooms that I'm making. So go back with your scissors. You might want to change the shape, make things a bit smaller. Before you stick anything down, do a bit more scissoring and, you know, just get it right. Some little details, add them in with your scissors, cutting. that's done. Once you've got all of your bits cut out and arranged in sort of how you would like it, you need to get your plastic container, PVA glue, squirt a good amount of glue onto the container, try not to get it anywhere else. You need something like, I use this stick, but you could use even just a bit of card that you've cut to put on your glue onto the back of the pieces that you're going to stick down. The most important thing though is when you're looking at your picture is to start with the things that are right at the back of the image. It's tricky because sometimes you have to take off all the top bits, put them away somewhere, maybe clean up your desk a bit so they don't get mixed up in all the other stuff, but just put them to the side and then start at the very back. And when you put the glue on the paper, just hold the piece of paper, get a little bit of glue on your stick or whatever you want to use, and just dab it on the back like that. Carefully, not too much, because if you put too much on, it can go a bit lumpy and bubbly. So once you've spread it onto the corners, it doesn't have to be the whole sheet of paper, or the whole piece. You have a bit of glue and then you stick it carefully into the spot where you want it, and then just slowly work your way up until you get to the top bits at the top. And it might take a while, but it's worth it. So once you've done all your fiddling around and sticking and gluing, you should end up with something that looks pretty crazy and dreamy. And sometimes, you know, it changes along the way. You might think, oh, oops, I stuck something in the wrong spot, but it doesn't really matter as long as you make it work out. Now, one thing that you can do at this stage is if you feel like there needs some detail, you can get a pen or a pencil or a paintbrush, even if you want to, but don't do too much. And you could put, you know, you might want to put a face on something, or you might want to draw a tiny little fairy house to give it scale and perspective. So I'm going to spend some time, draw a couple of little details on here and make it really look like somewhere that I would want to go in my dreams. Hopefully you're happy with your end result, and you might even want to make a story that's set in your place. You could create a character to go into your dreamscape. It's actually endless. It's the start of a real dream. You could turn it into a book. Maybe I'll see it one day in the library. Hope you had fun today, and I'll see you next time.